In the darkness beneath the earth, buried 3 meters deep within an ancient Kenyan cave, a secret lay hidden for 78,000 years. A human skeleton, small, curled, alone in a peculiar position. No companions, no grave goods, not a single clue. Who placed this body into the grave? And for what purpose? Was this truly a burial filled with love? Or a horrifying sacrificial ritual long buried by history? In 2021, the archaeological world was shaken by an unprecedented discovery at Pangaya Sidi Cave in Kenya. Not just an ordinary cave, but a vast limestone system, located about 15 kilometers from the Indian Ocean. During careful excavation, scientists uncovered the unexpected: a deliberately dug burial pit, 3 meters below the surface, containing human remains. Advanced radiocarbon dating revealed a stunning conclusion. This grave is 78,000 years old, making it the oldest known human burial in Africa, predating the pyramids and humanity's earliest temples. Remarkably, unlike many ancient human remains often discarded, scavenged, or left where they fell, this grave shows clear signs of intentional burial. This indicates one thing: 78,000 years ago, humans had begun forming complex ideas about death, rituals, and perhaps belief systems. But who was buried in this ancient grave? And why were they interred in such a special manner? After months of meticulous analysis, scientists determined these are the remains of a child around 3 years old, named Mtoto, meaning child in Swahili. Mtoto was buried lying on their side, head resting on a pillow as if sleeping, legs drawn up, arms folded across the chest, the upper body carefully wrapped in a shroud, the entire body placed in an oval-shaped pit, meticulously dug into the cave floor. Soil analysis around the remains shows the body was carefully covered with earth and possibly lined with organic materials, perhaps bark or leaves. Evidence suggests the body underwent a controlled decomposition process within a confined space, indicating it was wrapped or preserved using some technique. But the strange part is, why a child? Why buried alone, with no adults nearby? And why were there no grave goods? No weapons, jewelry, or tools? Was this the child of a leader? Or someone chosen for a sacred ritual? Or, more disturbingly, a being sacrificed? To better understand the significance of Mtoto's grave, let's compare it with similar archaeological findings from that era. Shanidar Cave, Iraq, one of the most notable archaeological sites related to Neanderthals. Researchers found natural pollen traces in sediment layers around the skeleton, suggesting Neanderthals may have placed flowers in the grave, a symbolic and emotional act. These graves date from 40,000 to 60,000 years ago. Sungir, Russia. Site of Homo sapiens graves, dating from approximately 24,000 to 34,000 years ago. Notably, a grave containing 2 children buried with over 10,000 intricately crafted ivory beads, jewelry, and stone spears. The elaborate nature and quantity of artifacts indicate a highly complex and symbolic burial ritual. In comparison, one thing becomes clear: Mtoto's grave is the earliest, and also the most enigmatic. Mtoto's grave dates back 78,000 years, predating Shanidar and Sungir by 20,000 to 40,000 years. But more astonishing is its peculiar simplicity. No grave goods, no jewelry, no tools, no accompanying adults, just a child lying on their side, as if asleep. Why is Mtoto so different? Did burial rituals evolve over time, from simple as in Mtoto's case, to complex as in Sungir? Or did each ancient community have distinct beliefs reflected in how they confronted death? The common thread among these graves is, ancient humans had the capacity for abstract thought about death. They didn't merely dispose of corpses, but truly contemplated the meaning of loss, the soul, and the afterlife. Confronted with this 78,000-year-old grave, scientists have proposed various hypotheses, some controversial and chilling. Suspicious aspects of the grave: a solitary child in absolute darkness, a 3-year-old child buried deep underground, alone in the eternal darkness of a cold stone cave, with no adults nearby, no community traces. This absolute isolation sends shivers down researchers' spines. Was this truly a loving farewell ritual, or a ritualized form of abandonment? No signs of trauma, but death came with eerie silence. No wounds, no signs of illness, no clear cause of death. Could this have been a silent form of sacrifice? A death carried out discreetly as part of a ritual? A forgotten ritual, or deliberately concealed? No other graves nearby, no accompanying artifacts, no symbols. All that remains is a child buried quietly, as if their existence was meant to be forgotten. Could this be the remnant of an ancient ritual our ancestors themselves chose to erase? An early form of soul offering. In many ancient civilizations, children were often seen as pure souls, easily connecting with deities. Burying a child deep underground might not have been merely a farewell ritual, but a form of soul offering to supernatural forces. Mtoto's grave is not just an archaeological discovery, but also an epistemological revelation. It tells us how our ancestors thought about life and death. For centuries, scientists believed that complex notions of the soul and the afterlife only emerged around 40,000 years ago, alongside the explosion of cave art and the first religious symbols. But this 78,000-year-old grave overturns all prior assumptions. It proves that Homo sapiens had concepts of life and death, the soul, and the afterlife much earlier than previously thought. To conduct a burial ritual, humans needed the ability to abstract, that is, to understand that something exists after death. They needed the capacity for symbolism, to express ideas through actions, and they needed complex emotions, enough to dedicate time and effort to the deceased. This raises a profound question. Have we underestimated the intelligence and emotions of ancient humans? Perhaps they weren't the savages we've imagined, but possessed a rich spiritual life, capable of contemplating the universe, existence, and the meaning of life and death. Despite thorough research, Mtoto's grave still leaves many unanswered questions, mysteries that continue to puzzle scientists. First, why was the child alone? In most ancient cultures, children were often buried with adults, especially their mothers, but Mtoto was entirely alone. Second, no grave goods. Why? Almost every culture has the custom of placing items with the deceased: weapons, food, jewelry. But Mtoto had nothing. Third, signs of controlled decomposition. What technique was used? Analysis of the remains indicates the body underwent decomposition in a confined space. But what technique? And why preserve a body destined for deep burial? Fourth, why are there no other graves nearby? If this was a cemetery, why only one grave? If not, why choose to bury a child here? When we look at later civilizations, we encounter astonishing burial practices, ancient Egyptians, and architectural sacrifice. In some ancient Egyptian cultures, circa 3,000 to 5,000 years ago, archaeologists have uncovered evidence of infants buried in ceramic jars beneath floors or building foundations. This is referred to as architectural sacrifice, a ritual practice based on the belief that the child's soul would protect the structure and bring fortune. The Carthaginians and the god Baal Hammon. Carthage, an ancient civilization in North Africa, circa 800 to 146 BCE, revealed a unique cemetery known as the Tophet, containing thousands of urns filled with the cremated remains of children. Many scholars believe this serves as evidence of child sacrifice to the god Baal Hammon. We must be cautious when projecting dark interpretations onto the past. Yet, it is undeniable that throughout human history, the line between spirituality and violence has often been perilously thin. Among researchers, some hypotheses remain controversial, ideas that few dare to speak aloud, yet cannot be ignored. First hypothesis: the child may have been killed as part of a ritual. Although the bones show no signs of trauma, many methods of killing leave no skeletal evidence, such as suffocation, poisoning, or starvation. In several later civilizations, children were often targets of sacrificial rites due to their perceived purity and closeness to the divine. Second hypothesis: this could reflect a pre-religious belief in spiritual reincarnation. In many cultures, children were seen as newly arrived souls from another world. Their early deaths were interpreted as a return to the spirit realm. A carefully arranged burial may have been a way to send them back to their origin. 78,000 years have passed. Panga Ya Saidi still stands in silence. The ancient grave is now in a museum, yet its mystery remains unsolved. Whether a solemn ceremony or a brutal rite, the 78,000-year-old grave stands as irrefutable proof of one deep human truth. Even before we could write, before we built great structures, we knew how to grieve and how to mythologize death. The true horror does not lie in the bones, nor in the ancient rites. It lies in the profound silence of death, a silence that has lasted 78,000 years and still has no answer. And perhaps the most haunting truth is this: no matter how far our civilization advances, we remain haunted by the same questions our ancestors once asked. What is death? Is there anything beyond it? And how do we cope with the deepest loss a human can endure? Have we truly evolved beyond the fears of our ancestors? Or are we merely echoing the oldest beliefs humanity has ever known?